And welcome. It is time once again for CU Immigration here on WRFU LP Urbana, 104.5 FM. I will be your host for this evening. My name is Mr. Garza, and I would like for you to know that WRFU is an open forum for the Urbana-Champaign community. I would further like to inform you that views expressed are those of the speakers and are not intended to represent WRFU, UCIMC, Urbana Socialist Forum, or, as we like to say on the TV version of this show, UPTV. Whose views are these? Well, that's a good question. You might want to know, and as long as you probably would like to know. Boy, that was smooth, wasn't it? I started to say something else, and then it didn't work. So, anyway, whose views are these? Yes, back to that question again. Well, you're about to find out when my two charming guests introduce themselves to you at this time.
My name is Devin Day. I'm a University of Illinois second-year master's student in the urban planning program.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you.
And my name is Elizabeth Villegas. I am a second-year PhD student in Human Development and Family Studies.
Greetings to both of you. So we've actually been talking for a while now, and we're all very depressed. And so this is going to be an interesting show. I mean, obviously, the topic, as you might have guessed by the title, CU Immigration, it's about immigration. More specifically about immigration here in the Champaign-Urbana area, but kind of about it, just immigration in general. And one of the things that we like to do on this show is kind of demystify the topic a little bit, because certain forces, boy, it's a lot of the stuff that I say naturally in the show are just has a whole new meaning now. But there are forces who use the topic of immigration and the idea of immigrants as tools for political manipulation. And surprise, surprise, in case you hadn't noticed, they won the election. And now, so we're all sitting here, what we've been talking about for the last few minutes, which you wouldn't know. That's strange. The camera just went, hold on a second. Is that we're wondering, sorry, I'm trying to fix something here. Okay, I don't know why, all right. Crazy. Anyway, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, no, we're wondering what's next for all of us. What's next for immigrants, immigration, people who study in immigration, work on immigration. What do we do now? Because it seems that the idea of immigrants as something destructive, negative, poisonous to the system has prevailed in at least in the election. That worked. That won. And that means that all of us who work with immigrants and work on immigrant issues are faced with the fact that not only, I mean, we still have the same work to do, right?
I think we have the same work to do, but at the same time, it's more urgent and a lot more is needed, if that makes any sense.
But what more could we do than what we've been doing all along? I mean,
well, so over the past week, you know, we as we've already said, Wednesday was really sad, and everyone got really sad, and I am still sad, and I'm still depressed. But I think we were, and when I say we, I mean sort of I don't know what people would like to think is a progressive left political community.
yeah.
And I think that there was some complacency within the last 8 years of President Obama's America. I think that he was a good captain of the ship. I think that he was able to sort of steer clear of the icebergs, and he didn't. He wasn't maybe as progressive or radical as some people would have hoped, given his background. But At the same time, I think, people didn't feel like they had to fight as hard for things, maybe, and we got complacent and fighting for some of those things that we really believe in. And I think that with this new president-elect, I don't really want to say his name, not because I'm scared of his name, but just because I don't want to say it. I think that there's going to be a renewed push. There's going to be a lot more energy and fire for people to do something new and something different that we didn't have when President Obama was going to be president, and when we thought Hillary Clinton was going to be president.
Yeah. Well, really, if you think about the last 8 years, it's been an interesting kind of dual path, kind of walking on two paths at the same time. On one hand, you felt or you believed or were told that the president was with us, wanted to do good things, wanted to reach out to immigrants, wanted to be welcoming, all that stuff. But at the same time, he was also deporting lots of people, and
more than under W. Bush.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So helping people, there was always this sense of like, it became difficult over time to say, well, he would do all these great things if only the Congress or the whatever would let him do those. And it was like, well, yeah, I still kind of think that that's true, but at the same time, it was hard. And I know there was a lot of pushing on the left, the far left anyway, to like, he sends drones, he does all this stuff, he's no different from any of these other guys. There was this like, he's the warmonger in chief and all this kind of stuff. So it was this weird kind of place you had to find a sort of a spot in that liminal space between wanting to think good things about him, but help people defend themselves against what wasn't that good. Mm-hmm. And so if nothing else, at least the election has clarified who the enemy is in terms of like, who do we have to be worried about? The federal government, State government, maybe not so much, Maybe that's okay here and in some places, but the federal government is pretty much going to be universally and completely anti-immigrant. It's not a question anymore. We don't have that ambiguity anymore. It's going to be pretty much clear cut. They're the enemy. Look out for the feds.
So what do you think can be done on a ground level, or even on the? Do you think there will actually be pushback from the left side that has some power? Well,
there isn't a lot of pushing back that we're going to be able to do until, as you said, the midterms, with hopes of retaking the Senate. I think the House is out of reach for a good long time until, unless there's something huge happens, But I think. Actually, in a way, I think we can do what we have been doing. It's just there's not that weird sort of ambiguity anymore. It's like really clear cut what's going on. We've got an administration that wants to get rid of excess immigrants, anyone who's undocumented, totally wants to refuse any refugees whatsoever from anywhere, and is animated by an antipathy toward people of color from anywhere, whether they live here or come from somewhere else or whatever, and who inspires and elevates voices that are even farther in that direction. They're not necessarily going there, but they're certainly not closing the door to that kind of thinking. So it's pretty clear. I mean, I guess it's not good. It's just, who your enemy is. It's not this weird kind of like, well, Obama says he loves you, but he might send your granny away, sorry. That's just how it's going to work. You know, that weird kind of like, who do we trust? How do we feel about this? There's none of that, you know, not anymore.
I mean, I feel that, and I think that maybe this election is just making those fears more palpable for more people. I think that certainly those fears were always there for immigrants to the United States, and I think that there were immigrant allies that were doing all that they could do to help the community, to help immigrant communities. And I guess maybe part of this is hope. I hope that with this new political climate, there are going to be a lot more people who are backing that fight and who really understand that this is really serious, that people are scared and they need support.
Yeah, now that's a good point too, because for a long time there have been a lot of people who were verbally supportive, let's say. If you ask them, they go, "Oh yeah, I think we should let's be nice to immigrants." You know, they just had this sort of, let's be nice, let's all be brothers. But they weren't doing anything, and they weren't going to do anything because they didn't feel like they had to. And that's part of where the ambiguity of the feds came in, because the president would give speeches of nice feelings towards immigrants and stuff. So it's like, yeah, well, you know, we're on a good path, and we've got DACA, we've got these things going, so you know, it's okay.
This is an immigrant nation, and we value you, and we're built on your hard work, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was easy to just not think about it because somebody else was doing it. And so maybe, as you suggest, there are some people that, you know, there are always going to be people who just never can be inspired to do anything. But there may be some people who are kind of sort of tacit allies, you know, just kind of like on your side, but they never really do anything, who are now going to go, oh my God, this is terrible. We have to act. We have to step up and do stuff. And, you know, it's not like the election was lost by a landslide. It was lost by a technicality. It was won by a small majority of people on the progressive side, 1 million or so, but it was lost in the Electoral College. So it's not like we woke up one morning and go, oh my God, we're a nation of racists and bigots. You know, it's like we always knew there were lots of racists and bigots here. We've never had any doubt about that. We've just seen that they're not gone yet. You know, they're alive and well and perfectly willing to exercise their powers. So, you know, in one weird way, not much has changed, and in another way, a whole bunch has changed. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, and I think I feel like I go back and forth on this. I have always tried to actually act to support the causes that I believe in, and rather than just saying that that's what I do. And sometimes I'm better at this than at other times. But I think it's easy for me because I'm a white middle class male, straight, cisgendered, and I think that I feel the fire. I'm really angry about this, and I feel like if I'm angry about this, even though I could be perfectly safe in the new America, but I'm not okay with that.
That's good. If my arm was long enough, I'd pat you on the back. No, I think this is. I mean, we're really kind of, to a certain extent, I'll offer this excuse to the listening audience that we are. This is sort of like, what would you call it? Decompressing, just sort of thinking out loud here. We don't have an agenda or a plan. The topic is generally immigration, but there's, we go all around that all the time. So, so many emotions were engendered by this election that I think some musing, some thinking, some just kind of letting off steam, ranting, I don't know what you'd call it, is in order, because I feel so many things and I don't know what to say. I want to get into arguments with people, but the only time I did was on Facebook right after the election, and I made the comment that I made to you earlier, which I don't know if was on the air, about how either if something along the lines of that, I really can't forgive anybody who voted for this guy, because either you're a racist, a bigot, or blah, 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 or you're okay with that, one of the two. But it's not like anybody didn't know. And that was kind of my point. And I had someone who came in who, I wouldn't say as a friend, but just somebody that I knew, who responded like, well, I voted and I'm not a this or a that. And I was like, yeah, but,
You say that you're not, but...
You're not, but there's always that but there. And he started to make a variety of statements as kind of excuses, like, well, I voted for him because I thought Hillary was a liar and she was only in it for herself, and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Like, Trump
That sounds familiar.
is the biggest, most obvious liar there is. So that obviously is not a disqualifying point for you, because you watched him lie in real time and not even pretend to try and fix it. Plus, there is nobody who is more self-absorbed and whatever than he is. So that's obviously not a deal breaker for you either. So therefore, you're proving my point. It's like all your reasons don't amount to anything, and you didn't care. Obviously, the conversation didn't go well, but we were both polite. But it was funny to hear, well, white men have been, are the last group that everybody feels it's okay to make fun of, was one of his statements. And we've been left behind. There's no, no one is looking out for our interests and all this stuff. And other people were saying, what are you talking about? White men control all the levers of power in this country. They have all this stuff that's completely not true.
Making fun of white men is the only thing that people can do to assert some sort of freedom of expression over, the injustices that white men have basically dominated throughout our history, and still do. And it's really hard to change that. And it's ridiculous. It's to say you can't make, it's silly to make fun of white men.
I know, but
it's they're the dominant majority. I mean, if you look in any society, any country in the world that has a dominant majority, it's okay to make fun of the dominant majority. That's just how it works.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt them. It hopefully deflates them a little bit. That's the difference. When you're looking down on somebody and ridiculing them and doing things like that, that's hurtful, because there's power behind it. When you're looking up at something and making fun of it and ridiculing it, it's not hurtful to them. They can just laugh it off if they want to and ignore it. But again, that's not necessarily. I'm not advocating people go out and make fun of white men, or anything. I don't think that's a great way of doing things. But my point was that all of his arguments, and I don't remember them all, but there was a number of them, and they were all wrong, like demonstrably wrong, completely wrong. But
Actually,
it was
yeah.
the reality that he lives within. He apparently believes this stuff based on his conversations with other people, his media intake, probably watches Fox News, whatever the thing is. So because that is his reality, then it makes sense that he would have taken that step. And that's the weird thing about arguing with people, is until you can establish some shared reality, there's no point in arguing, because if you don't agree on your basic premise, then there certainly can never agree on anything else. You can never agree on what to do about anything, because everything is different. Everything that you're seeing is different from everything I'm seeing. So naturally, your solutions for what to do about those things are going to be completely different from mine. So, we just gave up. There was nothing else to say, because it's like, okay, our view of reality is so different. There is no conversation to be had here.
Well, and I wonder if part of that is just that tensions are so high after the fact that it's, people need a little bit of distance and, like you said, to decompress. And I wonder if you were to come at it again in a month or 2 months. I mean, clearly there would be more things to be angry about, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's part of it. But I think you're right. Like these are some of the conversations that I've been having. I think, of course, if you factor Facebook and social media and social networking sites into this, people are having a lot of different conversations. But one of the conversations that I keep having or especially I keep seeing online, is this idea that there should be some sort of reconciliation and coming together and making sure that, there is one America, the United States of America. What is the phrase Obama uses? I can't remember, but he talked about it the other day when he made that speech on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But so on one end of the spectrum, there's this sort of idea that we need to reconcile and sort of understand where this sort of angry backlash came from, and understand why people voted for Trump, and just recognize the anger and the feelings of disappointment and disinvestment that people feel in Rust Belt, rural America. And I don't feel that way. I mean, I recognize that argument, and I kind of understand it a little bit, but
Yeah.
I don't really want to do that. I feel the exact opposite. I feel like, and I feel this way towards people who didn't vote, and I also a little bit feel this way about people who voted third party or who wrote in Bernie. I voted for Bernie Sanders. I wanted him to win. I felt like he was the true progressive, and he was going to really change the system. But it's like you said, it's like that gut feeling that people have when they vote, that they don't. In my mind, a lot of people didn't think about the repercussions. And if you say to me, I voted for Jill Stein or Johnson, I can't remember his first name, or I wrote in some other candidate, or I didn't vote. I voted everything else. I just left, the presidential candidate section blank. To me, that's saying, well, you shows that you have a privilege to do that. You're not thinking about what could happen in Trump's America. You're not thinking about the real fear that people have, that they're going to be hurt, that they're going to be deported, that they're going to have to register as Muslims. And that makes me so angry.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I'm angry.
And so people say, we need to reconcile the right. We need to reconcile the people who did vote for Trump and who felt that passionate anger, and we also need to reconcile people on the left who didn't vote or who wouldn't vote for Hillary no matter what. And I'm not there yet. I don't feel that.
I guess it depends on what you mean by reconcile, or what people mean by reconcile. We do have to decide whether we want to continue being a single nation or not. And if we're not going to be, that's going to be really hard, because nobody's going to let go of that. But,
That would be interesting to actually see that happen.
Yeah. Well, it's not like people haven't been talking about it throughout Obama's term. Texas wanted to secede. There are all these different places, wanted to secede. And so now it's California, Canada. So I saw a map the other day. It was like California, Washington, or whatever, attached to Canada, has become part of Canada. Well, I might be moving west here. But yeah, I feel bad though, because we're somehow talking past you, and you're not.
It's okay. I feel like I can be a slow processor sometimes. I feel like I'm still processing a lot of the election.
Yeah.
And kind of, I don't know. I guess just like my thoughts and what's happening. Like, I understand the anger. I feel like I am angry as well. I feel like some people are more passionate than me, and I recognize that.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to understand. I think I'm trying to figure out like, what do I need to put my energy in, and what I can actually like stand for. And like, I think one thing is probably like undocumented immigrants, and kind of just seeing where. I feel like I've never really been that, like, I don't know the words for it, but yeah, so I think I'm still processing, and I'm still seeing what's going on, seeing like anger from both sides, and like feeling really like uneasy about it. And I am not good with confrontation, so I feel like I try to avoid any discussions on Facebook, and like people who try to bring it up, I'm just like, this is a lot. And yeah.
Is our passion disturbing you? Is it making you uncomfortable?
It's not. I feel like I'm used to that. I just don't know how to really interject that.
Are you wanting to exert a calming influence and go, oh, let's not get carried away?
I think sometimes, when I feel like, oh, like everyone's like upset and angry, I'm like, yeah, like you have a right to be, and I understand why, and I believe a lot of the same things, but I'm like, can we just all be happy? And I'm like, yeah, kind of like what you were saying, Devin, like, no, not really, not right now. And I think that's okay. It is kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. I don't like conflict myself. I really dislike it. I'm getting better at it as I get older. It's something that's more like, okay, this has to happen, and it needs, we have to hash this out,
Right.
Because way back in the day, I'd be like, oh no, it's kind of move around it, and I'd always avoid it and stay out of the way of it as much as possible because it just made me so uncomfortable. But I'm starting to see that there are times where avoiding it prolongs it. It just stretches and creates resentment and all these different things that become attached to it because it lingers, you know what I mean? So it's like throwing your garbage away right away. It's a drag to have to do that, but if you don't and it just sits there, it's going to start stinking, and the longer it sits there, the more it's going to stink, and then it's even harder to throw it because I don't want to touch that, it's horrible, and if I open this up, it's going to smell, you know what I mean? So that's my if there's anything like wisdom in old age that's sort of come to me is the realization that there's some things that are better dealt with quickly and just get them out and get them done, and other things you can put off and wait a little bit. But I don't know that this is not something. It's not like we can do something about this.
Right.
Like when we leave here, I don't expect any of us to be like, all right, I'm fired up. I'm gonna go. I said I was gonna do it. And now I'm gonna do it. It's like what? What are you gonna do? Just go out and wave a sign. I mean, there's a time and a place for that, but it's not going to help much at this point. But strategizing, thinking, getting your feelings out is a good thing, I think.
Well, it seems like your approach is probably the smart one, especially staying away from Facebook.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that they're definitely. I think the place where I'm at is I feel good that I'm angry if I can direct that towards something, like you said. And I think that there are some things that are starting that hopefully can carry on in terms of organizing and mobilizing. I even think that protest is a good thing to do because even now, when Trump is only, just appointing cabinet members and talking about his agenda and what he's going to do in his first 100 days, there are things that we can protest.